two questions, one from a Leave voter, one from a Remain voter. So first of all, Yvonne Emerton, who voted Leave, please.
Brexit has taken up so much time already. People are really fed up. Can you guarantee that it will happen next year?
Can you guarantee it'll happen next year? And then Tom Clark, who voted Remain.
How would we be better off from the Brexit deal or a future Labour deal compared to what we already have as a member of the EU?
Thank you very much. Let's turn first to Yvonne Emerton's question. Can you guarantee that Brexit will happen next year? Jeremy Corbyn.
What I can guarantee is that we'll bring an end to this debate and we will have a final say for the people of this country. We cannot go on forever saying we represent the 48 or the 52. I want to lead a government that represents the whole country and the whole community. So we will, within 3 months, negotiate a leave agreement with the European Union that will protect trade and jobs and the peace process in Northern Ireland, and put that alongside Remain in a referendum within 6 months. And that will be the end of the matter. My role as the leader of my party, as the Prime Minister, would be to ensure that decision is carried out, whatever it is. But nobody voted to lose their job or to lose trade with Europe. People voted for many, many reasons, but I think we've got to come together and bring this issue to an end, not go down the road of sweetheart deals with the USA.
Boris Johnson.
Well, I share the frustration of both our questions about the length of time it's taken to get Brexit done. And what we can do with the deal that we have is get it done by January the 31st and come out. And then to get to the question about the advantages, we can do such things as improve our standards for animal welfare, ban the live export of animals. We can cut VAT on tampons. We can do things to create free ports around the country. There are all sorts of ways in which we can regulate differently and better. We can also, of course, control our immigration system for the first time in a long time. Now, what I haven't heard from the leader of the Labour Party is this deal that he thinks he can get in 3 months' time. Who is going to negotiate it? Because as far as I can see, everybody on the Labour front bench is campaigning to Remain, apart from Mr. Corbyn, who is neutral on the matter. Who is going to secure this deal? How can you get a deal, a new deal from Brussels for Brexit, if you don't actually believe in it? That's the mystery that I fail to understand.
Jeremy Corbyn, how do you get a deal, he asks, if you don't really believe in it? And John McDonnell and Diane Abbott and Keir Starmer, all the rest, they say they're Remainers.
We get a deal in order to ensure that whatever the outcome of final vote, the trade relationship continues with Europe. If you go down the road, it'll take 7 years to negotiate a trade deal with the USA. You're going to have queues all up the M20 in Kent. You're going to have a problem of supply chain to all of our manufacturing industries. You're going to have job losses on a huge scale.
Nonsense, he says. Why are you saying nonsense?
Unless you have a serious deal with the EU to maintain that trade relationship.
We have a deal. It's a wonderful deal. We're coming out on January the 31st if we can get a working majority. And I'm afraid, listening to Mr. Corbyn, it's absolutely clear that what would happen next year is there'd be a period of negotiation about this mystery deal led by somebody in the Labour Party that we can't yet identify, since Mr. Corbyn doesn't believe in the deal himself. It would then be put to another referendum to the people of this country. Parliament, our country, would spend a whole year more, probably more, locked in debate about Brexit, when what people want to do is move on and focus on the issues facing the people.
Jeremy Corbyn.
And that's what we can do immediately.
And Mr. Johnson will spend at least 7 years negotiating with the USA on access to our public services, on the price of medicines in Britain, on the access to our National Health Service. And he knows he can't get a deal quickly with the USA because of the way in which the US political system works. And so what he will do is walk out of a relationship with the EU into a relationship with nobody. And that is where the chaos will come.
What's your answer to that, Boris Johnson?
I have to say, I'm afraid that shows a slight ignorance of the reality, which is that as we leave the EU, we are coming out with our deal with a state of perfect equivalence, zero tariff, zero quota. We'll be able to begin not only putting in our Australian-style points-based system for immigration, taking back control of our laws, taking back control of our money. We'll also be able
asked you about trade, though, Mr.
trade
Johnson.
talks not just with countries around the world, but we will do a fantastic deal with the EU and with the US.
Can we be
and
clear,
many
Mr.
other
Johnson?
countries.
You again and again say the phrase "get Brexit done."
That's right.
But you haven't done a trade deal with the EU. You don't know you can do a trade deal with the EU. You don't know there won't be no deal on trade with the EU, do you?
On the contrary, we have a fantastic deal. It is there, ready to go. And
Not a trade, forgive me. You don't have a trade.
What our deal allows is for British businesses of all kinds to have perfect confidence in the way we leave the EU, because we are in a state of equivalence with zero tariff, zero quota, exact regulatory framework, and we have ample time to get on and build a new free trade partnership, not just with the EU, but with countries around the world. And the great beauty of this deal is that it gets Brexit done, gets it out of Parliament, stops the wrangling, stops the chaos, and moves us forward.
Thank you very much. Jeremy Corbyn. Jeremy Corbyn.
Boris Johnson is going to spend years negotiating with the USA. He's going to spend years ruining the fact he didn't reach a proper agreement with the EU before leaving. And as the documents we've shown today indicate, he hasn't been exactly straightforward on the issues surrounding trade with Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. And so I do think we need a bit of openness from the government. We forced them to release the documents, or we released them for them actually, a week ago, which showed the access that the US were demanding to our public services. And today, the news came out of what's happening with Northern Ireland. And
briefly, Mr. Corbyn, for people who didn't hear the news, what are you claiming the documents show? And then we'll put it to Mr. Johnson.
They show quite clearly that there are going to be charges, there are going to be customs checks, there are going to be restrictions on trade between Britain and Northern Ireland.
Thank you very much. Boris Johnson.
Well, actually, that is not true. The whole of the UK comes out. England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland together. We do free trade deals together. Northern Ireland is part of the customs territory of the UK, and we are united. And I have to say, I think it's a great opportunity for our country. And it says unfettered access, I think is what it says.
It says unfettered access, then all through it questions the fettering that will happen.
That is what we will have.
One at a time, please.
And that is, and what the document also says is that Northern Ireland is part of the customs territory of the UK. And, you know,
isn't the problem, Mr. Johnson, that the DUP, the unionists who were your partners, they agree with him and not you?
Well, they don't actually, because our deal is a great deal. Let me just make one point. I do find it slightly curious, to say the least, Nick, to be lectured about the union between Great Britain and Northern Ireland by a man who all his life, political life, has campaigned to break up that union and actually supported for 4 decades the IRA in their campaign violently to destroy it. I must say I find it a curiosity.
Jeremy Corbyn, what's your
How
answer to
about
that?
the Prime Minister showing a degree of honesty about the arrangements he's actually made with Northern Ireland? He spoke at a DUP conference and said there would be no restrictions whatsoever. We now know there are restrictions. He should and could have said that at the time. And so it is a question of openness on all of this.
But being open, he says, you've supported people who are opposed to the union your whole life. You don't even believe
what
in
I've
the United
done is always wanted to see a peace process in Northern Ireland, and that is exactly what we've got. And thank you to the Labour government that negotiated it after 1997.
Now, gentlemen, briefly. Thank you. There was a second question. I want to give you the chance. If you remember, let me just remind you, Tom Clark asked you, Mr. Johnson, how will we be better off from the Brexit deal or a future Labour deal compared to being in the EU? Please.
Well, thanks very much, Tom. And there will be all sorts of ways. I've mentioned the ways we can cut VAT on sanitary products or regulate differently for bioscience or have free ports in areas that need investment. You can trigger growth and investments in some of the left behind coastal communities by having free ports, as 130 countries do around the world. We can't, because of EU rules. Another major advantage is, of course, that we take back control of a lot of money that we'd otherwise send to the EU. But I might mention also our ability to control our immigration, which is not unimportant. I'm a believer in immigration for people of talent who want to come here, fantastic, but we've got to control it democratically.
Jeremy Corbyn, your answer to the question,
us to do.
Forgive me, how will we be better off from Brexit, you're asked, if you have your deal, or indeed, and you go to a referendum and it passes and we do leave?
Because we will make sure that our jobs and our manufacturing industries are able to continue trading. Over half of our trade is with Europe at the present time. Walk away from that. Put up a barrier on that, then you've got real problems for manufacturing industry jobs all across the country. Many jobs have already been lost because of the uncertainty surrounding all this. We
Can I
have
talk-
to deal with this
Two
within
seconds.
6 months. The Prime Minister's suggestions of a trade deal with the USA, which will take at least, in their estimation, 7 years to negotiate, means 7 years of complete uncertainty and continued job losses in manufacturing industry.
Jeremy Corbyn, you've been asked by Boris Johnson, I want to give you the chance to answer it, why you won't say where you stand on Brexit. Is it that you don't know what you think about Brexit, or that you do know but you won't tell people?
It's because I think the country has to come together and cannot keep on negotiating and arguing with itself about 48 versus 52. It has to be an agreement we can reach with the EU that is credible and would maintain that trade relationship, but would be outside of EU membership or full membership of the EU. That is a way of bringing people together, and a government that implements that decision, whatever it is.
Very brief
You
response.
cannot end the uncertainty. You cannot end the uncertainty on Brexit if you don't know what the deal is that you want to do. I negotiated our deal. You cannot negotiate a deal if you're neutral on it. It's absolutely inconceivable. And I think it is, I'm afraid to say, a failure of leadership not to have a position on the greatest issue facing this country at the moment.
Thank you very much.
You cannot get a good deal for this country if you don't believe it. And
We
I
want to
yet
move
to
on.
understand how Mr Corbyn proposes to negotiate a deal
Thank you.
for Brexit.
Well, you put that to him and he's had the chance to respond. So let's move on to the National Health Service, another crucial issue. We've got